All right, we'll start with a half butterfly. So our right leg is straight, left foot to the inside of the thigh, and then we'll let the upper body just relax. And this is the big difference for Richard or anyone else who hasn't done yin before, or is just not that familiar with what's going on. You'll notice my hands, the palms are up. I'm just letting my upper body come forward and down. You notice my foot isn't flexed or pointed in any particular direction, not intentionally. That's just sort of where it goes naturally in this posture. And so this idea of alignment, proper alignment, activation, all of that out the window, okay, in yin yoga. If you're taking a real yin class. So there are some teachers who teach yin, they've never really studied it, they just sort of their own take. They might teach alignment and all this other stuff, but that means they've not studied with Paul. And Paul, my yin teacher, he pretty much invented the style as we know it. So authentic yin, when we understand what yin is about, when we really understand what's going on, then we want to be relaxed. We're not making an effort. We're not trying to align things. What we do want is to feel safe, and we want to feel a stretch in a specific area here in this posture. So the back of the right thigh. You might also feel a little bit in your back, and that's what I was talking about earlier. This is actually preparing us. So this is focused on the hips, right? This is your thigh and your hip joint. The muscles of the thigh affect the hip joint. There are also some muscles up here in the torso that affect the hip joint, but mostly it's the thigh. Okay, so when you take a hip opening class, something like that, you're more or less doing a thigh opening class, if you will. These muscles here, that's a lot of what's going on when you do hip opening in yoga. Okay, so that's what we're doing. That's part of what we're doing today. We're opening the hips. We're stretching the muscles of the hips out. These are the hamstrings. So that's the first area that we're working. So one thing that can happen is you don't feel safe. It's a little too intense, right? Maybe you're clenching your teeth, something like that. Well, then use some support. Blocks under your forearms, forehead, under your left knee. Okay, you support the body, and that will hopefully make you feel safe. It's going to be less intense. However, if you start propping yourself up, getting more and more comfy, and then you no longer feel the stretch here, it's too much. So try and find a balance. Let's switch sides. So most of you have heard me say in the past that yoga in general, and this style of yoga, yin yoga specifically, there's nothing about it that is inherently designed to be comfortable or easy. So we want to get those concepts or those ideas really kind of out of our head. And the reason for that is this is being talked about more and more in medicine and wellness and with scientific research. Hormetic stress, okay? Hermetic stress. These are stresses that are good for us. They don't feel good, but they're good for us. And we have to understand that a lot of things we can do that cause healing, that cause growth, that ultimately lead to a greater sense of fulfillment in our life, a greater sense of joy, greater sense of peace. They don't feel good while we're doing them. Now, over time, we might learn in a kind of Pavlovian way that, oh, I feel this sensation that's not pleasant now, and I'm going to feel so much better later. So we might enjoy it, right? Someone who likes going to the gym and likes the way that they look and they feel afterwards, they might start to look forward to feeling the burn because, you know, they know what the result of feeling the burn is. So there's this sort of Pavlovian response in their system. But at first, they may not have enjoyed feeling the burn. And a lot of people don't. Okay? So this is just part of education when I'm teaching you this. I'm just talking about facts, folks. This isn't my opinion. This isn't me trying to spin something. I'm trying to help you get the most out of your practice. And in order to do that, you have to understand that this isn't about always being comfortable, everything being easy, being able to do everything the first time around it's presented without any practice or effort. These are things that, the reason I'm mentioning them here is I've taught yoga a long time, everybody. Sometimes people think that I'm younger than I am, but I'm almost 50. I'll be 50 next year, okay? As far as I'm concerned, that's, you know, it's getting up there. And so I've been teaching yoga for over 2 decades, like it's 23 or 24 years now. So you have to understand that I've seen a lot. So this comes from seeing how people respond and react to real yoga, right? To these techniques and other techniques that might take them out of their comfort zone. I'll say this, I'll be so bold as to say this. If you're really doing yoga, sooner or later you will be taken out of your comfort zone. That's almost a guarantee at a certain point, okay? All right, let's go ahead and come on up, and we're going to do one more posture before we take a little rest. Take it easy, and that's this. It's the caterpillar. So with both legs straight, coming forward, again, you'll notice I'm nice and relaxed. I'm not pulling or tugging on anything, okay? And that is going to be focused on here, the spine. So what's interesting about the spine is the spine is a column of joints. And generally, if joints are healthy, we don't feel them. Not much. So you might be sitting here and be like, oh, I don't really feel anything. Now, one of the things that my yin teacher, Paul Grilly, taught me is like, that's a lie. The truth is you're always feeling something. When someone says, I don't feel anything, what they mean is a few things, possibly. I don't feel what I expected to feel, right? Or I don't feel a lot. I'm not feeling fireworks. I'm not feeling some kind of big shift or change. But the truth is you are feeling something in your back, even if it's not a lot, even if it's not what you expected, even if it doesn't compare with what you were feeling back here, okay? So let's just let that be enough. One of the worst things you could do in a posture like this one is say to yourself, well, I know the teacher's saying to relax, but he doesn't know me. He doesn't know what a badass I am. He doesn't know, you know, how strong I am, and he looks like kind of a wimp. So he can do yin yoga that way, but I'm going to improve it. I'm going to do better. I'm going to grab my feet and pull myself down. Oh yeah, I feel that. Yeah, that's the manly way to do this. I don't know what he's talking about. He can do it that easy way, but I'm going to do it this way. This is, you know, powerful, and this is the badass way to do yin yoga. Well, you're wrong. What you're doing is you're greatly increasing your chance of injury, and you're also interfering with the benefits. Okay, you're doing both of those things. So you're not only are you not getting more benefit by doing that, not only are you not getting the benefit that we want you to get, but you're also increasing your chance of injury. So again, this comes from education. This isn't, again, just my opinion. This isn't some philosophy of like ancient Taoists tell you to just relax or something like that. This is physiology, okay? So you want, in a pose like this one, There'll be some poses later that you can work it more if you feel inclined to, but not this one. It's just really not safe to do that for the amount of time that we're going to be here. If you come on Mondays at 12:30, we do a more active class, okay? In that more active class, that's where you can push yourself and, you know, be a badass and do all that kind of stuff, but not this kind of posture, okay? Not this practice. All right, let's go ahead and come on out of that. We'll gradually make our way onto the back. And this is called a rebound. It's part of the practice. It's an important part of the practice. And we relax and feel. You'll notice I'm very still. That helps me feel more subtle sensations in the body. Again, many of us, if I were to ask you, what do you feel? You might say, nothing. I don't feel anything. Or it feels uncomfortable. There's pain. It's unpleasant. Well, see if you can just allow whatever it is without labeling it, without judging it, without deciding that it needs to go away. You just relax and let it be there. You'll probably notice it's already changing. Things are shifting, things are rebalancing on their own without you having to do anything. Now, rebound usually lasts about 30 seconds to a minute. So that was about a minute. That's about the, somewhere in there in that range. And then after that, we bring our legs in and we do what's called the leg cradle or some other counter stretch. So we bring the legs in, we move them around gently, and we're just trying to release the back there. Create a little bit of balance. We were stressing that area for about 12 minutes. So now we're just giving it a little bit of free form movement, if you will. And I definitely feel it in my back. Some of you know that my back's been kind of acting up over the last week. So it's very tender. Okay. So from here, we want to continue on, but we need to come up to seated. So in yin, very often we use these transitions to activate the core and to pull the hips and the spine back together. So we don't want to just any old way come up to seated. Okay, we sort of ritualize it, and it's another form of exercise. It's also a tiny bit of core strengthening, which your average American desperately needs, whether they realize it or not. And core strength is for spine strength. Okay, so it's not superfluous, it's not vanity, it's necessary. So we take the hands, we slide them underneath the sacrum, palms down, and then we first thing take the legs straight up. Now, if there's like a shooting pain in your back or, a lot of discomfort in your back, you're going to keep bending your knees until that pain subsides. Otherwise, you just keep those legs straight, lift the head and neck, and then on an exhale, just gradually lower the legs. You notice I'm not rushing or anything. And then right before they touch the ground, I'll pop them up, and then I use it like a hinge to bring me up to seated. Okay, so the weight of the legs is enough to kind of pull me up like a counter lever. Okay, so this next set of postures, again, it will be 2 or 3 depending on how you want to count it. Posture, the other side, and then we'll do one that's symmetrical. So this is going to, this might be a little more challenging, at least for some of you. All right, so please keep that in mind. And then also I'm going to ask you to keep in mind that despite how you may have been taught yoga in the past, the way I teach, the way I was taught, it's not about how the posture looks. So you might be at home and it's really gnarly and you're kind of wondering if you're doing it right. And I'll give you two principles that will teach you whether or not you're doing it right. Now, whether that's the best you can do it or not, that's another story, right? Whether or not it could be improved, that's another story. But is it right? Is it dangerous? We'll try and answer those questions. So let's move over the left leg here. And we're just going to hold the foot. And if you can't reach the foot, and I know some of you may not be able to, that's fine, nothing wrong. Just grab a tie or a belt, put that over the foot, and you're going to hold the tie or the belt. Now, again, I'm not saying pull yourself down, okay? I'm saying hold yourself in place. There's a difference. Because if I let go of my arms and I relax, I will naturally come back to center, right? I'm not going to stay over here. That's not where my muscles are relaxed. I'm going to come right back to the center. I don't want to be in the center. I want to be over here. Now the stretch is here. So if simply folding over this leg, I feel it here, then you're done. Okay? Now it's kind of a good thing that you all can't see one another, but you can see me. I don't feel the stretch here. So I'm going to roll or stack the right shoulder over the left like that until I feel it, and I feel it about here. Okay, if we were in person, then it's very likely if you were looking around the room, you would see some people who were much further than me. Their shoulders were perfectly stacked. It looks like the left side of their torso is flat against their thigh. Okay, and you might, and I'll mention this too, you can bend this knee as well. All right, so this knee can be bent. You could hold the foot that way. So you might be looking something like that. Your knee is bent, you're folded over, it looks really awkward, and you're thinking, oh, I'm not doing this right. Or this is embarrassing. Look at those other people. That is completely the wrong attitude that we want to bring, I would say, not only to this yoga practice, but any yoga practice. And again, I know there are teachers who will disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. They are more than welcome to disagree. Okay? If they want to believe that yoga is about performing physical feats perfectly, picturesquely, that's fine. I don't see how that can help you heal, how that can help you grow, how that can even be safe. Okay? So safety is important. So if when you do this, you start to feel shooting pain somewhere, electrical pain, something really intense, then you come out of it. Okay? You need to keep monitoring your sense of safety because nothing is inherently safe or unsafe for everyone. And this is a hard lesson to learn because it makes you somewhat powerless as a teacher. Okay? If I had a magic formula that told me this is safe for everybody and this is safe for nobody, then that would give me a lot of power, right? But no such formula exists. Some people, and here's the catch, some people think there is such a formula. They're just incorrect. Again, my opinion, but my opinion comes from decades of doing this. It doesn't come out of thin air. Let's switch sides. It would be much simpler, much easier. I would probably be a much more popular teacher. I was talking with the students yesterday about that. I would probably be much more popular if I simply just told people exactly what to do and how to do it and didn't waver on that. Didn't give them any options. I just said, here's how it goes. Because generally people like that. It makes it simpler. They don't have to think. As some of the people who do inquiry know, a lot of times we don't want to be in the body. The body is an uncomfortable place to be. We'd much rather be someplace else. So asking people to, hey, you know what? Go into your body. Go ahead and feel if there's pain or discomfort. try and measure whether that pain or discomfort is actually something that needs to be addressed, because just like in inquiry, in yin yoga, there will be pain that needs to be listened to, that needs to be addressed, done something about, you might say, at least in the short term. And then there will be pain that if we just relax and we allow it, we will be better for it ultimately. Okay? So these are actually rather advanced concepts. And again, there'll be many people who just, they can't fathom that. They can't understand that. And that's fine, because we generally don't understand it until we've experienced it ourselves. So if I've never had an experience of pain, discomfort, and I've never trusted enough to allow that and to see what's on the other side of that, if I've always cut that short, if I've always said, no, I'm not going to allow that, I'm going to find a way to block that, and if I can't, I'm going to leave my body, which is what a lot of people do. A lot of people live disembodied lives. And this is what can make teaching yoga so challenging, is again, you're asking people, get back in your body. Well, one of the ways I find that as teachers, we kind of cheat people out of that experience is by giving them strict body cues where the body should be. We basically paint a picture for them and say, hey, recreate this picture. That's all you have to do. Well, then they don't have to feel anything, right? We're giving them a bypass. We're allowing them to skirt around one of the most vital aspects of what's going on, which is actually feeling the experience. All right, let's do one more posture, and then again, we'll take what's called a rebound, which is like a little miniature shavasana. If you've done other styles of yoga, you've probably, I hope, for goodness sake, I hope you've done shavasana before. Who knows? I don't know what's out there anymore, folks. I don't have the luxury or honestly the desire most of the time to take a yoga class in public. All right, this is the frog. So knees wide, feet can flex or point, heels can be together or apart, okay? Hips can be over the knees or pressed back more. You can be up on your hands like I am, but you're also more than welcome to drop down to your elbows. Some people even lay flat on their belly. And the stretches in here, these are your adductors, and that's the area. So that first set of postures, we were trying to stretch, again, the obliques, the intercostals, which is the side of the torso. And now we are focused on the hips. So again, this sequence generally alternates hips and spine. There's one exception to that where it's a little murky toward the end. And that's just keeping with the spirit of this practice. So technically it follows the same sequence or the same methodology, but it's a little off. I've discovered, again, that generally speaking, that's the case when I'm sequencing. If I have a kind of a pattern I'm following, it'll apply like most of the time, but not all the time. There'll always be exceptions. And that's another thing I love about what my teacher, Paul Grilly, shared with me. He shared so many just valuable insights and concepts. And again, many of them, I think he just learned over years of teaching. He just sort of realized these things. Some of them he maybe has learned from his teachers or other wise people that he's read. But I think many of them he just sort of observed and then said, hey, this is what I see going on. So one of the things he said quite emphatically early on when I was learning from him, and I wasn't learning in person at this point, I was just studying his materials, was there's an exception to every rule. There's an exception to every rule. Maybe that's the only rule that there's not an exception to. But who knows? Maybe there's an exception to that. That is the exception, right? Right there. The fact that there's not an exception to the fact that there's an exception to every rule. So that's the one rule that doesn't have an exception. So think of whatever principle you live your life by. If you're not careful by living by a principle, as useful as it can be, it can cause you to go to sleep to reality. So when the exception is staring you in the face because of your belief in whatever, you don't see it. All right, let's go ahead and take a rest. This is again called a rebound. Now, what's important in a rebound is not the posture, it's the relaxation, it's the comfort. So many people coming out of this frog will just feel good bringing their knees together and then just letting their hips rest back. It's called a child pose. So that feels really good for me after that posture. But you know what? Again, we're not all the same. So for some people, this is torture. Their ankles are inflexible, their knees are inflexible, they just feel a lot of pain. So for some people, it's going to be coming forward and just laying on their belly. For other people, they might actually just sit in a cross-leg position. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so that's something that Paul pointed out. And, you know, so anything he taught us, he would be like, just know, whatever I'm teaching you, whatever principle I'm teaching you, you have to know that it's not going to always apply. So don't try and apply it in every instance, or else you're going to end up hurting people. You're going to end up not helping people. Whereas if you just had your eyes open, you're like, oh, this obviously isn't working. Let's try something else, right? Okay, everybody. So let's come into tabletop. And we'll move around a little bit, stretch out a little bit. This is called marauding bear. And it can be, as the name applies, quite young, quite aggressive, quite active. So again, sometimes I think people think because it's a yin class that then we have to always like hold back or be quiet or be still. But these counter stretches are meant to be the opposite of that. So you want to be quite active, if anything. Okay. Take your time with that, but when you're done, we do the down dog. And again, in a yin class, down dog is not meant to be held in a still way. We want to move and stretch and activate. Okay, from there, we will transition to the sleeping swan. So right knee toward the right wrist, the foot comes to the left side of the mat. The hips are down and back. And we'll go over the fine bits of this posture, okay? So you could stay up on your hands. We're going to be here 3 minutes. So it's a long time to be up on your hands, but you're more than welcome to do that if that feels right. I'm just going to stay here because it's a little easier for me to communicate as a teacher. And as I've mentioned to the class before, like I'm not actually doing yoga right now, I'm teaching it. So this very much, you need to keep in mind, this is a do what I'm telling you to do, not exactly what you're seeing me do kind of thing, okay? So I'm doing what's called demoing, which is just demonstrating, but I'm not actually taking yoga. If I'm going to take or do yoga, I'll do that after we're done, you know, on my own. So just keep that in mind. So most of you will probably want to be down on your elbows, but you are welcome to stay up if you want. I'm just going to stay here, again, because it's easier to communicate with you right now. So we want to feel it here, okay? We don't want it in the knee or the ankle. Now the right foot, which is over here on the left side, that could be flexed or pointed. It could be closer to my left hip, or I could draw it up so it's the same plane as my knee. and my shin bone is running parallel with this front edge of the mat. Okay? You should only do that if you have a lot of external rotation in this hip joint, in your femur bone. Okay? And that's your hip joint that would give it to you. Now, if you have a lot of tension because you never stretch, then over time that might change. But if you've been stretching for a while, or you just have bones that are shaped a certain way, then that may not change. And that's just reality. So again, I was having a conversation with some students last night, and things like that, flexibility, how flexible I am, there's only so much we can change. Some people naturally have a body built for a lot of flexibility, so they can get stiff if they don't stretch and practice and take care of themselves. But then if they start stretching and practicing and taking care of themselves, they will gain an amazing amount of flexibility, like a Cirque du Soleil amount of flexibility. Here's the key. You have to be born with it, and most people aren't. Vast majority of people aren't. Okay? Some people are. We used to have a girl at Brightfire who would come to class, and she's just ridiculously flexible. From what I could tell, she didn't dance or do anything to earn or warrant that. She didn't take special pills or do a ton of yoga or any of that. She just was ridiculously flexible out of the gate. All right, let's switch sides. Does that mean we can't improve from where we are? No. You may be able to improve your flexibility. Does it matter? Not really. Stretching itself has benefit. Okay? So stretching itself is good for the tissues of your body. What yogis have learned is it's also going to be good for regulating your nervous system, for your mood, for your energy level, on so many levels, on so many bases. With inquiry, I suspect that an inquiry is a spiritual practice that I also facilitate people with, and some of the people here are from the Scots group, which is the inquiry group. I think with inquiry, it helps too. It creates a sense of spaciousness in the body. So again, if my whole body is like a dense brick and the facilitator says, okay, tell me where the tension is, tell me where my whole body is in extreme pain, and the facilitator says, tell me where the pain is, tell me where the contraction is, you're gonna be like, I can't tell you. It's like everywhere. Everywhere hurts. Everywhere is contracted. So what these types of practices can do is help us create a sense of space, openness, wellness, at least in parts of the body. Okay? What I don't like as a teacher is relying on any one thing, thinking any one thing is going to be a magic bullet. And this is why I do so many different things. This is why I help people with inquiry. This is why I teach yoga. This is why I teach meditation. This is why I lead people in yoga nidra. This is why I do kirtan and chanting. Because I don't really believe just doing one thing is going to cure everything. I just don't. That's not been my experience. And I don't think that's the best method. Okay? Maybe it works. I mean, the Buddhists often, there are Buddhist sects, they just want to do meditation. That's the only thing they want you to do, and you just meditate and meditate and meditate. Maybe you listen to a few lectures. Maybe you do a little bit of chanting, but it's like, let's just meditate more. What's the problem? Okay, meditate more. All right, keep meditating. Meditate more. And I just don't subscribe to that approach. It might work. There have certainly been teachers and people who've come out of that community who seem like they're just fully there. They're embodied, they're enlightened. But man, it seems rare, doesn't it? It seems like those teachers there's not that many people coming out of there, right? There's a handful of teachers, there's a handful of people, but it's not like the majority of people coming out of there are like that. All right, let's do one more, and then again, we'll break for a moment. So we're going to come forward onto the elbows. This is the Sphinx or the seal. So Sphinx is done on your elbows. This is where I was talking earlier. There will be some postures later where if you really want to amp it up, you can. So you want to amp it up, here you go. You straighten your arms and you can actively press yourself back. Now you can do this with your legs together or apart, or you could even put them in a full lotus if you want. Head held up, drop forward, drop back. Shoulders depressed, shoulders relaxed. Okay? So I want to feel a little bit of compression in my back, not too much. A little bit of compression. It needs to be within the range of what you feel is safe for you. Okay? No one else can tell you that. Yeah, interesting. Yep. Yeah, this is what I seem to see as well. People who are very dedicated to doing one thing. Thanks for sharing that. And it's like they're very disciplined. They're good students. They're listening to their teachers. They're doing exactly what their teachers say. But you're kind of like, wow, like, I don't know, like, things don't seem to be changing that much. They don't seem that dynamic. And I'll also say for me, the measure is really the peace and joy that we take around with us. And, you know, that can be hard to judge. So I get, like, some of you might look at me and be like, ah, this guy's full of it. Like, he's not. All I can do is tell you, you don't have to believe me. But most of the time, not all of the time, I'm human. I have my low times or whatever, but they're pretty rare. You know, they didn't used to be. Okay, and that's the other important thing, is that it's not like I was always this way. I went through years and years of my life where I was just depressed or on the verge of depression, always anxious, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And my life today is so different. I live with a really vibrant sense of aliveness, of excitement about life, what it has to bring, just gratitude for being alive. Just yesterday, I went into class just feeling so grateful for nothing, just for being able to show up and teach a yoga class. And there's a few people there. It wasn't a big class. It wasn't like, you know, my ego is being stroked or anything like that. But it was just like, and I said that to the class, I'm like, we're so lucky to just be here doing this. Like, this is amazing. Life is a miracle. Do you ever feel that? Or do you just feel like, God, this is a slog. I hate this. Oh, another day, another day at work. Oh, I got this. Oh, I got to go to my in-laws. Oh, I've got this. Oh, I've got that. And I've been there. I get it. Okay? So this isn't like I'm inherently different from you. Oh, I can't fall into that. Oh, there's something wrong with you. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there is an alternative. Okay? And so this is also what I want to see. If you're a Buddhist and you're meditating every day and you're, 15, 16 hours of meditation, whatever, okay, great. So how's that working out for you? Is there this sense of vibrancy and aliveness in your life? The other thing is, I'm a little bit leery of anything that requires me to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours every day just to feel okay. All right? So that to me also is a little bit maybe problematic. Even though I teach meditation, I think it's a very powerful tool. So just come on out of that. But I think Adyashanti is right. He's a spiritual teacher who I really like, and I think he's right about a lot of things, maybe not everything, but a lot of things. And he said, and I'll quote him on this, I believe I'm quoting him accurately, meditation is both the most overused and underused spiritual tool. And the reason for that is most people, in my opinion, and I think what he's trying to say, most people aren't doing meditation. Most people meditating aren't even really doing meditation. They're doing something else. They're trying to control their experience. They're trying to limit their experience. They're trying to get into a blissful state. They're trying to alter their state. They're trying to get away from where they are. That's not meditation, not as he teaches it, not as I teach it. Okay, and I think if a lot of, well, I won't get into that. We'll just leave it there. Okay, so come on down. And let's transition now into the cattail. So cattail can be tricky, all right? And we are going to take the left leg and hike it up. I'm going to turn just so I can continue facing the camera here, okay? But you don't need to turn. Just from on your belly, you're going to hike your left leg up like so. Okay, so you pull it up. It could be straight or bent. That's up to you. Most of you will find it easier to bend it. Then prop your head up on the right hand, and then take your right leg and move it back. Okay? From there, you bend the knee, reach back and grab that foot. Now, today is our only spinal twist. Now, that's, again, this is where the kind of compromise, or where my program for sequencing the class kind of breaks down a little bit. So you're going to feel this primarily as a stretch in the front of your thigh. That's good. That's preparing us for the next posture, which is very challenging, especially if you haven't opened up the front of the thighs at all. This is our only twist, and it's kind of a challenging, it's probably not going to feel like a twist to many of you, and it's not going to be your deepest twist. But this is where, again, to follow what I was doing, I want to use this as a twist, because it is a twist. It's always a twist when done properly. It's just, again, for many people, not maybe their deepest twist. So to take it deeper, you want to leave your hips basically where they are, but you lean your left shoulder back. And you'll see I don't go very far. I have students where their left shoulder would be on the ground and their hips will just stay right where they are. So they have a much deeper twist than I do. And again, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and that's not likely to change. And that likely doesn't have anything to do with the amount that I'm practicing or how long I've been practicing. And again, there's just so much, it's really unfortunate, but there's just so much misinformation and misunderstanding. And so many people get set off on years of making efforts and, you know, wasting their effort, for lack of a better way of putting it. Again, I think many people are, you know, meditating and meditating and meditating, or they're doing yoga and they're expecting certain results, and their energy would be better spent maybe using a different tool. So again, just going back to the meditation thing, is meditation a tool that could lead to complete embodiment and you know, enlightenment and then embodiment? Because enlightenment comes first, and then embodiment is the work of embodying the enlightenment. That's where most people fall short. Those of you in the inquiry group know that. But it's the embodiment, that's where we really feel that joy. That's where we feel that peace. That's where we're going around in life feeling that, right? We're embodying that which we really are, which is that love, that peace, and that joy. So again, the question we could just ask ourselves is that my experience or not? And if the answer is no, then it doesn't matter how much we're meditating. It doesn't matter how spiritual we are. It doesn't matter how long we've been doing this. Then there's work to be done. And the tool you're using, maybe it will get you there one day. But here's another question to ask or to consider. Another thing to consider is maybe there's a tool that would get me there faster. Now, I'm not encouraging you to start like zipping and zapping all around, you know, because the other thing I can see happening in modern spirituality, and it happens a lot, is this sort of, you know, they call it the spiritual marketplace. So people bounce from one teacher to the next teacher to the next teacher. They bounce from one practice to another practice to another practice. So again, the analogy or the example that's given here often is somebody looking for gold or oil, right? And so they've got this field and it's, you know, theirs, and they're looking for oil or gold or whatever is gold, I guess, because I don't think you could dig deep enough to find oil on your own. So you're digging, and you dig a hole that's a few feet deep, and you're like, well, I don't think I'm going to find any gold here. So you move over a few feet, and then you start digging, and you're like, well, no. And then so you move over a few feet and you do it again, and you dig like, you know, 1,000 holes that are just a few feet deep. Whereas if you dug one hole that was 1,000 feet deep, you would hit the gold, which is maybe a whole layer underneath the entire piece of land, right? But because you don't have enough faith in the system, in what you're doing, you just pick something up, kind of play with it, and then drop it. And this is a form of what's called spiritual bypassing that happens a lot. People will do that. They'll kind of pick, oh, meditation. They'll go on a meditation retreat. They'll, you know, read all the books by some famous teacher. They'll, you know, try a retreat with them. And then, you know, a few weeks, few months, maybe even a few years, just, oh, okay, you know, then you drop that onto the next thing. Now, I will say that for whatever reason, most teachers don't diversify. And I think that that's a shame personally, because I think you need various tools to help people with various problems. Even Buddha said that. And I think Buddha was that kind of teacher. I don't think Buddha just had one method for helping people. I think he helped people in various ways, oftentimes by what he said to them, how he pointed verbally in the exchange that he had with them. And then probably also, if you met him, in his countenance, how he treated others, on so many levels. I think you would have found that he was always teaching, and his teaching was varied. Okay, let's come on out of that. All right, this one may be the most challenging posture, at least for some of you. So if you can't do it, don't sweat. Repeat this, right? One of those two, Sphinx seal. The reason this can be difficult is in our culture. It's really in our culture, so please don't think that this is universal. Our culture damages our bodies, you could say. If we just have certain habits and things that we do that is just horrible for our health, but we continue doing them for now. So hopefully one day with enough education and change, things will be different. But for now, super common that people in our culture cannot do this. Why? Because their ankles, their knees are not able to handle it. So that's you again. You don't have to feel bad or guilty. It's not your fault. It's very common. You just did what everyone else does, what's normal, and now you have, bad knees and bad ankles. But that's not normal. It's not healthy. I'll say it's not healthy. It's common in our culture. It's not healthy. It's not something you want to take sitting down. So eventually you want to rehabilitate those areas. But today may not be that day. So you can do the other back bend. If you're ready to try this, then your knees can be together or apart. Usually apart is less strain on the knees, just FYI. You can sit on your heels, you can sit between them, and you can pad under the feet. So grab a towel, grab a blanket, add some padding, right? So the bones of your feet are not digging into the ground so that your ankles aren't in pain. The toes can point back, or some people can bring the toes out at the sides like that. So whichever is less strain on the ankles and the knees is the proper choice for you, okay? Again, keep that in mind. We are not trying to stress these areas, okay? The front of the thighs, you might feel a stretch, and that's okay. That's one of the desirable stretches that's here. So knees, ankles, safe. And again, I can't make that call for you. You're going to have to decide, is that okay? Is that within the range of what my body can take today? Because it might be different tomorrow. All right. Once knees and ankles are okay, do I feel a stretch in the front of my thighs? If the answer is no, well, first of all, if the answer is yes, you just stay right there. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do next. Your goal, if you're feeling a stretch here, is just to stay with that stretch for the next few minutes, because that is therapeutic. Okay, the benefit is already there. It has nothing to do with the shape. It has nothing to do with the shape. Okay, so this is already a beneficial stretch. I don't need to change the shape of my body at all. Now, if I don't feel a stretch, I'm not getting a benefit. I'm just sitting here in this position. And that's the case for me. So what do? I try and find the stretch. How do I do that? Hands, do I feel it? No. Okay, so what next? Okay, elbows, do I feel it? No. Okay, and this is a kind of awkward position to stay in, but some of you come back here like, ooh, I feel the stretch. Then stay there. Okay, you can let your head go back if that feels all right. It's up to you. Again, what are you feeling in your body? Again, people hate that. They don't want the responsibility. They want the teacher to take the responsibility for them. And this is very common in spirituality. And you'll meet teachers who say they'll do that for you. I'll tell you my personal opinion, and again, this comes from decades of doing this and studying with various teachers. They can't. All right? I don't think the universe works that way. I don't think I don't care how enlightened or embodied they are, I don't think they can take responsibility for your spiritual development. I'm not sure that I buy that. Okay? So you're going to have to take responsibility because I can't. Okay? I can help you. I can guide you. I can't take responsibility for your safety, for your health, for your development. And again, people don't like hearing that. So if I were to just say, oh yeah, I'm responsible, I'm got it, then I think a lot more people would probably listen to me and follow me and come to my classes, whatever. But I'm just not going to say that because I just don't believe it's true. So you can see you can eventually make your way all the way onto your back. Very important. Your knees and ankles are still happy. You can also lay back on something. So if you have a big pillow or something like that, you can put that behind you and lay back on that. Okay, so you can raise the ground up, so to speak. Another very common thing here is, are my knees okay? Am I going to hurt my knees or something like that? It's fine if your knees come up off the ground a bit, right? So a lot of people are worried about if their knees pop up. It should be fine. You should be fine. Just again, monitor the amount of sensation that's there. And if it gets to a point where you're beginning to question whether or not it's safe, then, go ahead and come out of it and, just be mindful, be careful. Okay? All right. So we're coming up on the end of this posture. We'll come out of it. We'll counter stretch. So we'll rebound first, then counter stretch. And then I'll leave you to do your relaxation. Okay, so let's go ahead and come on out of that. So again, just feeling the sensations in a relaxed, comfortable position. For me, this feels perfect. So there was actually a fair amount of sensation in my knees for whatever reason. Then we'll bring the legs in, give them a little squeeze, shake it off. And then as usual, I'll have you grab your phone or a timer and just set a timer for 5 or 6 minutes. And see if you can just let your body rest for that amount of time. Just allow everything to kind of settle and rebalance, okay?